Chapter 1. Convalescence seemed to follow very quickly then, for I was utterly obedient, as I had promised, and never spoke of what could excite me to my own detriment, the wars, and my own unfortunate part in them. We talked instead of our love, our already too long engagement, and of the sweet dream of happiness that life held waiting for us in the future. And, indeed, I was sufficiently weary of the world to prefer repose to much activity, for my body was almost incessantly in pain, and this old garden where we lay between high walls of stone, aloof from the busy world and very peaceful, was far more to my taste just then than wars and fighting. The orchards were in blossom, and the winds of spring showered their rain of petals upon the long new grass. We lay half in sunshine, half in shade, beneath the poplars that line the avenue towards the lake, and behind us rose the ancient grey stone towers where the jackdaws nested in the ivy, and the pigeons cooed and fluttered from the woods beyond. There was loveliness everywhere, but there was sadness too, for though we both knew that the wars had taken her brother whence there is no return, and that only her aged, failing mother's life stood between ourselves and the stately property, there hid a sadness yet deeper than either of these thoughts in both our hearts. And it was, I think, the sadness that comes with spring. For spring, with her lavish, short-lived promises of eternal beauty, is ever a symbol of passing human happiness, incomplete and always unfulfilled. Promises made on earth are playthings, after all, for children. Even while we make them so solemnly, we seem to know they are not meant to hold. They are made, as spring is made, with a glory of soft, radiant blossoms that pass away before there is time to realize them. And yet they come again with the return of spring, as unashamed and glorious as if time had utterly forgotten. And this sadness was in her too. I mean, it was part of her, and she was part of it. Not that our love could change to pass or die, but that its sweet, so long desired accomplishment must hold away, and, like the spring, must melt and vanish before it had been fully known. I did not speak of it. I well understood that the depression of a broken body can influence the spirit with its poisonous melancholy, but it must have betrayed itself in my words and gestures, even in my manner too. At any rate, she was aware of it. I think, if truth be told, she felt it too. It seemed so painfully inevitable. My recovery, meanwhile, was rapid, and from spending an hour or two in the garden, I soon came to spend the entire day. For the spring came on with the rush, and the warmth increased deliciously. While the cuckoos called to one another in the great beech woods behind the chateau, we sat and talked and sometimes had our simple meals or coffee there together. And I particularly recall the occasion when solid food was first permitted me, and she gave me a delicate young bondelle, fresh caught that very morning in the lake. There were leaves of sweet crisp lettuce with it, and she picked the bones out for me with her own white hands. The day was radiant, with a sky of cloudless blue. Soft airs stirred the poplar crests. The little waves fell on the pebbly beach not 50 meters away, and the orchard floor was carpeted with flowers that seemed to have caught from heaven's stars the patterns of their yellow blossoms. The bees droned peacefully among the fruit trees. The air was full of musical, deep hummings. My former vigor stirred delightfully in my blood, and I knew no pain, beyond occasional dull twinges in the head that came with the rush of temporary darkness over my mind. The scar was healed, however, and the hair had grown over it again. This temporary darkness alarmed her more than it alarmed me. There were grave complications, apparently, that I did not know of. But the deep-lying sadness in me seemed independent of the glorious weather, due to causes so intangible, so far off, that I never could dispel them by arguing them away, for I could not discover what they actually were. There was a vague, distressing sense of restlessness that I ought to have been elsewhere and otherwise, that we were together for a few days only, and that these few days I had snatched unlawfully from stern, imperative duties. These duties were immediate, but neglected. In a sense, I had no right to this springtide of bliss her presence brought me. I was playing truant somehow, somewhere. It was not my absence from the regiment, that I know. It was infinitely deeper, set to some enormous scale that vaguely frightened me, while it deepened the sweetness of the stolen joy. Like a child, I sought to pin the sunny hours against the sky and make them stay. They passed with such a mocking swiftness, snatched momentarily from some big oblivion. The twilights swallowed our days together before they had been properly tasted, and on looking back, each afternoon of happiness seemed to have been a mere moment in a flying dream. And I must have somehow betrayed the aching mood, for Marion turned of a sudden and gazed into my face with yearning and anxiety in the sweet brown eyes. "What is it, dearest?" I asked, "and why do your eyes bring questions?" "You sighed," she answered, smiling a little sadly, "and sighed so deeply. You are in pain again. The darkness, perhaps, is over you." And her hand stole out to meet my own. "You are in pain?" "Not physical pain," I said, "and not the darkness either. I see you clearly," and would have told her more as I carried her soft fingers to my lips, had I not divined from the expression in her eyes that she read my heart and knew all my strange, mysterious forebodings in herself. "I know," she whispered before I could find speech, "for I feel it too. It is the shadow of separation that oppresses you, yet of no common measurable separation you can understand. Is it not that?" Leaning over then, I took her close into my arms, since words in that moment were mere foolishness. I held her so that she could not get away, but even while I did so, it was like trying to hold the spring, or fasten the flying hour with a fierce desire. All slipped from me, and my arms caught at the sunshine and the wind. "We have both felt it all these weeks," she said bravely, as soon as I had released her, "and we both have struggled to conceal it. But now—" She hesitated for a second, and with so exquisite a tenderness that I would have caught her to me again, but for my anxiety to hear her further words. "Now that you are well, we may speak plainly to each other, and so lessen our pain by sharing it." And then she added, still more softly, "You feel there is something that shall take you away from me. Yet what it is you cannot discover nor divine. Tell me, Felix, all your thoughts, that I, in turn, may tell you mine." Her voice floated about me in the sunny air. I stared at her, striving to focus the dear face more clearly for my sight. A shower of apple blossoms fell about us, and her words seemed floating past me like those passing petals of white. They drifted away. I followed them with difficulty and confusion. With the wind, I fancied, a veil of indefinable change slipped across her face and eyes. "Yet nothing that could alter feeling," I answered, for she had expressed my own thought completely, "nor anything that either of us can control, only perhaps that everything must fade and pass away, just as this glory of the spring must fade and pass away." "Yet leaving its sweetness in us," she caught me up passionately, "and to come again, my beloved, to come again in every subsequent life, each time with an added sweetness in it too." Her little face showed suddenly the courage of a lion in its eyes. Her heart was ever braver than my own, a vigorous fighting soul. She spoke of lives. I prattled of days and hours merely. A touch of shame stole over me, but that delicate, swift change in her spread too. With a thrill of ominous warning, I noticed how it rose and grew about her. From within outwards it seemed to pass, like a shadow of great blue distance. Shadow was somewhere in it, so that she dimmed a little before my very eyes. The dreadful yearning searched and shook me, for I could not understand it, try as I would. She seemed going from me, drifting like her words, and like the apple blossoms. But when we shall no longer be here to know it, I made answer quickly, yet as calmly as I could, and when we shall have passed to some other place, to other conditions, where we shall not recognize the joy and wonder, when barriers of mist shall have rolled between us, our love and passion so made over that we shall not know each other. The words rushed out feverishly, half beyond control, and perhaps shall not even dare to speak to each other of our deep desire. I broke off abruptly, conscious that I was speaking out of some unfamiliar place where I floundered, helpless among strange conditions. I was saying things I hardly understood myself. Her bigger, deeper mood spoke through me, perhaps. Her darling face came back again. She moved close within reach once more. "Hush, hush," she whispered, terror and love both battling in her eyes. "It is the truth, perhaps, but you must not say such things. To speak them brings them closer. A chain is about our hearts, a chain of fashioning lives without number, but do not seek to draw upon it with anxiety or fear. To do so can only cause pain of wrong entanglement, and interrupt the natural running of the iron links." And she placed her hand swiftly upon my mouth, as though divining that the bleak attack of anguish was again upon me with its throbbing rush of darkness. But for once I was disobedient and resisted. The physical pain, I realized vividly, was linked closely with this spiritual torture. One caused the other somehow. The disordered brain received, though brokenly, some hints of darker and unusual knowledge. It had stammered forth in me, but through her it flowed easily and clear. I saw the change move more swiftly then across her face. Some ancient look passed into both her eyes. And it was inevitable. I must speak out, regardless of mere bodily well-being. "We shall have to face them some day," I cried, although the effort hurt abominably. "Then why not now?" And I drew her hand down and kissed it passionately over and over again. We are not children to hide our faces among shadows and pretend we are invisible. At least we have the present, the moment that is here and now. We stand side by side in the heart of this deep spring day. This sunshine and these flowers, this wind across the lake, the sky of blue and this singing of the birds, all are ours now. Let us use the moment that time gives, and so strengthen the chain you speak of, that shall bring us again together times without number. We shall then perhaps remember. Oh, my heart, think what that would mean, to remember. Exhaustion caught me, and I sank back among my cushions. But Marian rose up suddenly and stood beside me, and as she did so, another sky dropped softly down upon us both, and I smelt again the incense of old gardens that brought long-forgotten perfumes, incredibly sweet, but with it an ache of far-off, passionate remembrance that was pain. This great ache of distance swept over me like a wave. I know not what grand change then was wrought upon her beauty, so that I saw her defiant and erect, commanding fate because she understood it. She towered over me, but it was her soul that towered. The rush of internal darkness in me blotted out all else. The familiar present sky grew dim. The sunshine faded. The lake and flowers and poplars dipped away. Conditions 1,000 times more vivid took their place. She stood out, clear and shining, in the glory of an undressed soul, brave and confident with an eternal love that separation strengthened, but could never change. The deep sadness, I abruptly realized, was very little removed from joy, because somehow it was the condition of joy. I could not explain it more than that. And her voice, when she spoke, was firm with a note of steel in it, intense, yet devoid of the wasting anger that passion brings. She was determined beyond death itself, upon a foundation sure and lasting as the stars. The heart in her was calm, because she knew. She was magnificent. "We are together always," she said, her voice rich with the knowledge of some unfathomable experience. "For separation is temporary merely, forging new links in the ancient chain of lives that binds our hearts eternally together." She looked like one who has conquered the adversity time brings, by accepting it. "You speak of the present as though our souls were already fitted now to bid it stay, needing no further fashioning. Looking only to the future, you forget our ample past that has made us what we are. Yet our past is here and now, beside us at this very moment. Into the hollow cups of weeks and months, of years and centuries, time pours its flood beneath our eyes. Time is our schoolroom. Are you so soon afraid? Does not separation achieve that which companionship never could accomplish? And how shall we dare eternity together if we cannot be strong in separation first?" I listened while a flood of memories broke up through film upon film and layer upon layer that had long covered them. "This present that we seem to hold between our hands," she went on in that earnest, distant voice, "is our moment of sweet remembrance that you speak of, our renewal, perhaps, too, of reconciliation, a fleeting instant when we may kiss again and say good-bye, but with strengthened hope and courage revived. But we may not stay together finally, we cannot, until long discipline and pain shall have perfected sympathy and schooled our love by searching difficult tests, that it may last forever." I stretched my arms dumbly to take her in. Her face shone down upon me, bathed in an older, fiercer sunlight. The change in her seemed in an instant, then complete. Some big, soft wind blew both of us 10,000 miles away. The centuries gathered us back together. "Look rather to the past," she whispered grandly, "where first we knew the sweet opening of our love. Remember, if you can, how the pain and separation have made it so worth while to continue, and be braver thence." She turned her eyes more fully upon my own, so that their light persuaded me utterly away with her. An immense new happiness broke over me. I listened, and with the stirrings of an ampler courage. It seemed I followed her down an interminable vista of remembrance, till I was happy with her among the flowers and fields of our earliest pre-existence. Her voice came to me with the singing of birds and the hum of summer insects. "Have you so soon forgotten," she sighed, "when we knew together the perfume of the hanging Babylonian gardens, or when the Hesperides were so soft to us in the dawn of the world? And do you not remember," with a little rise of passion in her voice, "the sweet plantations of Chaldea, and how we tasted the odor of many a drooping flower in the gardens of Alkinos and Adonis, when the bees of olden times picked out the honey for our eating? It is the fragrance of those first hours we knew together that still lies in our hearts today, sweetening our love to this apparent suddenness. Hence comes the full, deep happiness we gather so easily today. The breast of every ancient forest is torn with storms and lightning. That's why it is so soft and full of little gardens. You have forgotten too easily the glades of Lebanon, where we whispered our earliest secrets, while the big winds drove their chariots down those earlier skies. There rose an indescribable tempest of remembrance in my heart as I strove to bring the pictures into focus. But words failed me, and the hand I eagerly stretched out to touch her own met only sunshine and the rain of apple blossoms. The myrrh and frankincense, she continued in a sighing voice that seemed to come with the wind from invisible caverns in the sky. The grapes and pomegranates, have they all passed from you with the train of apes and peacocks, the tigers and the ibis, and the hordes of dark-faced slaves? And this little sun that plays so lightly here upon our woods of beech and pine, does it bring back nothing of the old-time scorching when the olive slopes, the figs, and ripening cornfields heard our vows and watched our love mature? Our spread encampment in the desert, do not these sands upon our little beach revive its lonely majesty for you? And have you forgotten the gleaming towers of Semiramis, or in Sardis those strange lilies that first tempted our souls to their divine disclosure? Conscious of a violent struggle between pain and joy, both too deep for me to understand, I rose to seize her in my arms. But the effort dimmed the flying pictures. The wind that bore her voice down the stupendous vista fled back into the caverns whence it came, and the pain caught me in a vice of agony so searching that I could not move a muscle. My tongue lay dry against my lips. I could not frame a word of any sentence. Her voice presently came back to me, but fainter, like a whisper from the stars. The light dimmed everywhere. I saw no more the vivid, shining scenery she had summoned. A mournful dusk instead crept down upon the world she had momentarily revived. "We may not stay together," I heard her little whisper, "until long discipline shall have perfected sympathy and schooled our love to last. For this love of ours is forever, and the pain that tries it is the furnace that fashions precious stones." Again I stretched my arms out. Her face shone a moment longer in that forgotten fiercer sunlight, then faded very swiftly. The change, like a veil, passed over it. From the place of prodigious distance where she had been, she swept down towards me with such dizzy speed. As she was today, I saw her again more and more. "Pain and separation, then, are welcome," I tried to stammer, "and we will desire them." But my thought got no further into expression than the first two words. Aching blotted out coherent sentence. She bent down very close against my face. Her fragrance was about my lips, but her voice ran off like a faint thrill of music, far, far away. I caught the final words, dying away as wind dies in high branches of a wood, and they reached me this time through the droning of bees and the waves that murmured close at hand upon the shore. "For our love is of the soul, and our souls are molded in eternity. It is not yet, it is not now, our perfect consummation, nor shall our next time of meeting know it. We shall not even speak, for I shall not be free," was what I heard. She paused. "You mean we shall not know each other?" I cried in an anguish of spirit that mastered the lesser physical pain. I barely caught her answer. "My discipline, then, will be in another's keeping, yet only that I may come back to you, more perfect in the end." The bees and waves then cushioned her whisper with their humming. The trail of a deeper silence led them far away. The rush of temporary darkness passed and lifted. I opened my eyes. My love sat close beside me in the shadow of the poplars. One hand held both my own, while with the other she arranged my pillows and stroked my aching head. The world dropped back into a tiny scale once more. "You have had the pain again," Marian murmured anxiously, "but it is better now. It is passing." She kissed my cheek. "You must come in." But I would not let her go. I held her to me with all the strength that was in me. I had it, but it's gone again. An awful darkness came with it. I whispered in the little ear that was so close against my mouth. "I've been dreaming," I told her, as memory dipped away. "Dreaming of you and me, together somewhere, in old gardens or forests, where the sun was—" But she would not let me finish. I think, in any case, I could not have said more, for thought evaded me, and any language of coherent description was in the same instant beyond my power. Exhaustion came upon me, that vile, compelling nausea with it. "The sun here is too strong for you, dear love," I heard her saying, "and you must rest more. We have been doing too much these last few days. You must have more repose." She rose to help me move indoors. "I have been unconscious, then?" I asked in the feeble whisper that was all I could manage. "For a little while you slept while I watched over you." "But I was away from you. Oh, how could you let me sleep when our time together is so short?" She soothed me instantly in the way she knew we both loved so. I clung to her until she released herself again. "Not away from me," she smiled, "for I was with you in your dreaming." Of course you were. But already I knew not exactly why I said it, nor caught the deep meaning that struggled up into my words from such unfathomable distance. "Come," she added, with her sweet authority again, "we must go in now. Give me your arm, and I will send out for the cushions. Lean on me. I am going to put you back to bed." "But I shall sleep again," I said petulantly, "and we shall be separated." "We shall dream together," she replied, as she helped me slowly and painfully towards the old grey walls of the chateau.